Hello, this is Chip Caldwell. I'm glad to welcome you today to an executive session regarding the practices of Caldwell Butler and some of our research, based upon 3 of our ACHE courses: Aggressively Reducing Cost and Throughput Using Lean Six Sigma, Secrets of Great Healthcare Organizations, a study of over 200 U.S. hospitals, and our newest course, Living on Medicare Rates, National Best Practices to Reduce Costs, Grow Revenue, and Integrate Physicians for ACA Readiness, sponsored by ACHE. At the end of this session, you should be able to come to a common understanding of your critical strategic priorities, particularly accountable care. To differentiate Caldwell-Butler approaches from traditional lean firms, to explain the findings from our ACHE-sponsored analysis over 200 U.S. hospitals' use of lean for margin and throughput improvement, and then closing with an application discussion of how to incorporate the learnings from your accountable change model design and next steps. First, gaining an understanding of your needs. Take a moment to jot down on a piece of paper in this strategic discussion what improvements are critical to you at this moment. What have been your past barriers to progress, particularly in the use of accelerating quality methods like Lean or Toyota Production System or Six Sigma? How will you define success? By your results? What results are needed? By the number and the magnitude of changes made by senior leaders and directors and physicians? Or by the return on investment of your activities? And finally, what should the focus and attention of senior leadership be, and what is your current focus? Our understanding of your needs from past analysis and research suggests margin improvement, cost reduction, and throughput imperatives. How much? Our prediction: expect a lot more. Increasing the speed of implementation, particularly in margin improvement. Our prediction: that's a good call. This will become your ultimate competitive advantage. And readiness for ACO payment model in the less is more care design. Our prediction: the competitive advantages will come from clinical financial value stream optimization, being better at what we deliver, not just legal, structural, or simply adding medical homes. Which of our strategic case study and applications relate to your particular needs? $40 million, or 3% of your bottom line. Growth, as in Floyd, where they increased their vascular and neurosurgery by more than 130%? Or is CMS and HCAPS improvement important to you, like at Deaconess? Or the throughput improvement of 51% at All Children's Medical Center in St. Petersburg? Or clinical redesign and throughput at National Rehab in Washington, D.C., where they reduced their length of stay from 18 to 14 days during their second 100-day workout? Or finally, at Union Medical Center in Baltimore, where they increased one more case per surgeon block time, dramatically increasing surgeon loyalty and producing over $2 million of CFO-validated savings. First, just a moment about our research on the Living on Medicare rates. In our national study of accountable care organization and medical home pilots, the early impact on profitability has been dramatic. Where the lowest, where Geisinger's pilot has reduced admissions by just under 15%, to a high in the Community Care North Carolina pilot of the only rural critical access pilot of reducing admissions by 40%. By anybody's measure, this decrease in admissions from accountable care early interventions will have a dramatic impact on the way that we deliver care. Their success depends largely upon reducing admissions, and through 3 primary methods. 1, to shift care to outpatient settings, particularly surgeries, by reducing the incidence of preventable acute care occurrences, and by coordinating care both early and often. Now, what are the implications for health systems and hospitals? Well, first, we can expect a dramatic decrease in admissions. The early returns: a 17% reduction from the pilot medical homes. We can expect less surgery volume and, of course, less margin, since surgery is our most profitable service line. Thirdly, With a lower volume, we can expect an increased cost per department unit of service. And finally, with lower surgery, lower volumes, we can expect a higher facility overhead unless we offset these reductions through growth, leakage, or capacity rationalization. Now let's just spend a moment, or permit me a few minutes, to describe how Caldwell Butler approaches working with clients. First, we've been around the block a couple of times. In fact, we've been around the world a couple of times. We've seen a lot of places. Our current client mix represents 55% of them are in a multi-institutional system. 29% are academic or teaching medical centers. 8% are unionized, and 5% are critical access hospitals. We're one of the most published firms in healthcare. We have published the only senior leader guide for Lean Six Sigma by the American College or by the American Society of Quality, and our research last year, Cost Reduction in Health Systems, won the 2012 ACHE Article of the Year. Why Caldwell Butler? Well, first, our work is research-based, and it's sponsored by the American College. We know what works, and we know what doesn't work. It's not based on just our opinions. It's based on extensive annual research. Secondly, we have a strong team with C-suite experience. I myself have been a former HCA CEO, and I've been on the ACHE faculty for over 20 years. My business partner, Greg Butler, has been on the ACHE faculty for 10 years and vast experience in organizational change model development at both Cardinal Health and VHA. Jane Johnston, the former CNO of an HCA hospital, ran one of their top EDs in the country. Nancy Dodson, also a former HCA COO. Alan Dial, a master black belt and former HCA top lean trainer and manager of the North Florida Division's productivity system. And rounded out by other CNOs. We have one physician with extensive CMS and case management experience, and our lean master black belt is able to certify your team should you desire to have sustainability. And finally, we have a category known as adjunct faculty, in which we bring in those whom we have coached to help coach other senior leaders. And that faculty includes Kurt Stunkel, the CEO at Floyd Medical Center in North Georgia, Elaine Kercher, the CEO of the 4-hospital division of Providence in Washington, and Kathy Simchuk, the former CEO at Sacred Heart, along with Elaine. Additionally, we have the only Lean C-Suite courses offered by the American College and by the American Society for Quality. We have built exceptional tools over the years. We have an online tracking system known as Accelerator, which to date has over 61,000 individual changes collected by directors, we've collected from directors just as yours, and representing over 46 different departments throughout the health system, including inpatient, outpatient, and physician offices. We have an in-quality staffing tool that is an online analysis that enables directors to analyze throughput issues that are caused by being out of quality staffing. And finally, we have an RFID solution that we call real-time throughput, which enables rapid determination where issues and bottlenecks occur in healthcare processes. And finally, we guarantee a 3-to-1 return on our work. And as far as we know, we're the only firm that puts that guarantee in writing and puts it in place. So how do we approach working with clients? Our starting point is a self-discovery. Based upon our research of over 200 hospitals, we will conduct a senior leader and director survey monkey analysis and provide the results to you, comparing the behaviors of top performers to the answers provided by your senior team and your directors. Our second differentiation is that we believe an all hands on deck, that is, all directors working at the same pace at the same time, is a better approach to deploying sustainable lean changes than the contemporary one project at a time. In other words, we expect improvement in all areas, every department, every cost center, versus many directors just serving an advisory role. Thirdly, we decouple analysis from implementation. Most firms focus on teaching directors value stream analysis, spaghetti mapping, 5S, all analytic tools and all very powerful. However, the secret we have discovered in our research and our experience, the secret to change is not analysis, but implementation skills. And finally, we follow a see one, do one, teach one approach to sustainability, where we coach you over between 3 to 7 workouts, depending upon your needs, and then you can repeat those workouts that we have coached you in for multiple year sustainability versus just a training alone approach. We provide coaching at the senior leader level, the clinical and nurse level, for directors and quality professionals. We follow a 100-day cycle approach in which you gain bottom line throughput and margin improvement return while you learn as you go. And that sequence is continued long after we're gone for sustainability. We've developed 7 high-impact focus areas to assure your ROI, and you can repeat each of these sessions over the years to follow. How do we go about coaching? Our model is pretty straightforward. In a deployment of a singular workout, we provide coaching at the senior leader level. We provide coaching at the director level. We provide coaching from a master black belt in analytics and methods for your directors and quality staff, and with a nurse for your former CNO for your clinical staff, your nurses and physicians. And just as by example, this is a typical monthly check-in. Notice the driver is 2 changes per month. Our research has suggested that the top quartile performers average 2 changes per director per month. So our coaching focuses on how to teach directors to use the analytics, but also change management to drive change. And this example client, they began at 1.7 changes per manager per month, and they've progressed over 4 years to 2.3 changes per manager per month. The speed is the secret to your competitive advantages. Well, what is lean? Lean begins by looking at what we call big quality core processes and business practices. And then organizations go about reducing waste through lean application, and the exhaust of that waste reduction is safer care, better patient experience, and freed up capacity. The promise of lean is a reduction of costs and an increase in volume. Our competitors have a break point here. The training approach inserts hope here, and hope that costs are reduced, and hope that volume is increased. Caldwell-Butler inserts structure here to assure that there is a bottom line reduction in cost or increase in volume along with the use of the tools and methods. So hopefully I've learned from my mentor here in differentiating Caldwell-Butler. Hopefully I've highlighted our strengths, I have hidden our weaknesses, and I've totally trashed our competitors. Now let's take a few minutes and look at our ACHE sponsored analysis of use of lean to improve margin and throughput across the country. First, how did we do it? Well, when we study organizations, we quartile their performance based upon the percent change in their case mix index adjusted operating cost per adjusted discharge. We compare the top quartile group against the bottom quartile group. What did we learn? Well, first let's begin with low performers. Low performers put too much emphasis on analysis and too little on implementation. Lower performers believe that training alone will drive the organization to the next level. Lower performers follow a manufacturing model. They have hope that more analysis, more tools will reduce the natural resistance to change. They hope. They are, through over-analysis, they're indecisive and often slow to act. The manufacturing model fails to address staffing through quality eyeglasses as a key impediment to throughput barriers. And finally, for those in multi-institutional systems, The role of the system in the corporate office, black belts, lean experts, and training folks is dramatically misunderstood when we've analyzed many multi-institutional systems across the country. So how does one move from a traditional lean approach to an accelerated? Well, the traditional approach, when you go back, it's not enough if you are calling references from other organizations to pick the ones that are early in their progress. Call those who've been at it for 2 or 3 or 4 years, as we have done. And what you find is that typically there's little to show from the traditional method of deployment after 18 months. As I had mentioned, there's hope that lean will drive results, and there's an overemphasis on analysis. Compare that to the accelerated approach using our methodologies, multi-year, multi-million dollars. There's a direct link to CEO level balance scorecard metrics, and the emphasis is on implementation, not just analysis. There's a difference in goal setting in the use of data. There's a difference in structure. Traditional applications look at suggest one project at a time. Oh, let's start in ED. Then let's do surgery. We believe that there should be a sequence of 100-day workouts led by the C-suite, and that all director changes should be reviewed simultaneously, not just in these pockets of projects. And finally, instead of only selected directors being involved at a time, we want all hands on deck, all managers learning at the same pace so that we create a learning organization, not pockets of learning. And role differentiation is vital. In traditional application, the executive champion role is a soft role, and the lean experts and black belts are expected to drive change. In our model, the CEO holds all vice presidents accountable, something they're accustomed to, something they're good at. And then the VPs hold their directors accountable to 2 changes per month. It is not the black belts who can drive change or the lean experts. Really is dependent upon the CEO, VP, and director level to drive change. So what are we saying? We're saying we want to see less of this. It's not that value stream mapping isn't a strong tool. It's that should be done behind the scenes. We want to see less of this. Less spaghetti mapping. Less analysis, and paralysis, and more of this, rapid cycle detection, action-oriented implementation evidence. We want to know that when triage improved time to ED bed, we want to teach the directors, did the time to inpatient transport improve? They should learn how to track the results of their changes to overall strategic needs. So when we surveyed senior leaders, what did they tell us? Well, the answer isn't simple, but it has a simple form. First, they were good at prioritizing their strategies, and we've learned from that. Secondly, they're good at accountability. And thirdly, they do have tools, analysis, and training. But the secret was this: when we surveyed the senior leaders of top performers, they ranked the accountable change model owned by senior leaders as a non-delegable duty. They ranked accountability 30% higher than any other variable. And when we looked at organizations in the bottom quartile, we found a preponderance of a belief that training was the #1 variable for success. So what are these observations? Well, we picked up non-delegable roles of senior leaders. The first of those is a surprise. Stop leading and coach. Coach directors how to make changes. Anticipate and plan for obstacles. Direct speed and a bias towards action as your competitive advantage. Create interdepartmental collaboration constructs. Help directors to work across their boundaries instead of stuck in their silos. Build strong accountability structures. Focus on a strategy over time as opposed to thinking of project by project. Let's try ED, let's try surgery, let's try this in a one-at-a-time project by project mindset. Let's set explicit expectations for the number of changes per director per month with a connect the dots to strategic ROI. And finally, let's use lean effectively. It's not just about the training. We have a tool we call Accelerator. It's an online system. I mentioned earlier it has 61,000 ideas, changes within 46 departments that we expect directors in organizations we coach to enter their changes, and CEO, C-suite, vice president, directors, and managers to track in a real-time basis. How are we doing? What are our results? Each department sets its own structure. Here's how we're organized, enabling them to collect data on barriers to throughput, on implication of staffing, and physician rounding patterns. Where have we learned to develop expertise and coach directors? Well, first, if improving your margin is important, that far right column of the percent decrease expected in your operating budget, we have come up with a number of areas where we coach, but they focus in four main areas. Organizational excellence requires being better at operations. It requires being better at throughput, the second major category for leaders. It requires improving growth and reducing leakage of cancellations, appointment cancellations, and leakage to competitors. And then finally, clinical financial. How are we doing in the clinical arena? All of these add to our ability to improve margin over time, particularly needed in accountable care. What's some of the problems with lean? Well, the truth is everybody wants to count soft savings. Do your own Google search. This is just one of mine. A reported net savings of $250,000 a year. They report first pass yield. They report reduction in mean time of specimen. But look at this. They reassigned. They didn't reduce. The struggle is helping directors understand how to reduce their cost structures, not just transfer costs around. What makes lean fail? Well, as I had mentioned or hinted at earlier, the prevailing failure in the use of lean in healthcare is an overemphasis on analysis and too little emphasis on implementation. Those top quartile organizations that we study and the methods that we use to coach shift the focus towards implementation where the real difficulty lies. The essence of lean really is pretty straightforward. It's that an order generates a process. The number one block, an order generates a process, an order for a lab test, order for a medication, an order for physical therapy, an order for surgery, and then followed by the conclusion of that, and the care path then continues. This analysis or use of lean becomes much more complex when we begin to cross multiple department boundaries, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Many of these external handoffs are largely hidden, and the desire of lean is to uncover these. Physician rounding pattern is important and often overlooked. It explains over 85% of inpatient activity, and so the real question becomes, this rounding pattern in a hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, the real question becomes, well, why are we discharging 8 hours after the rounding? What are the barriers that are being presented in the throughput of care? And so you see here a traditional emergency department that suggests often we wait until we passed our peak demand until we respond or even detect, whereas the secret of lean is to predict earlier in the process. When are we beginning to become slammed, and how can we make interventions and develop contingency plans earlier in the process to mitigate the negative impact of our peak demand later in the process? Well, through our research, we found that there are 3 major attack points to improve throughput in healthcare. First, we have to declare war on delays. Our workout with all directors, we titled One More Throughput, using the 8 lean change concepts I'll show here in a moment, in which every director seeks to have one more patient proceeding from triage to an ED bed, one more patient to bed to treatment, one more patient from treatment to discharge. The second area is looking at staffing, something most often overlooked by non-healthcare firms. In and out of quality staffing, we call it. It explains 14 to 40% of the bottlenecks. That is, when staff gets slammed, throughput ceases. And then finally, using radio frequency identification, or RFID technology, enables real-time throughput, which compresses time to decision to zero. These are complex processes. We see here 7 specific statistical determinants of what bottlenecks this typical ED. Most of the ones that are difficult to manage are outside of the ED's control. Back-end constraints explain over half of the bottlenecks that occur in the typical emergency department. So how do we get at those? Well, our belief is that we began teaching directors how to understand the 7 categories of lean waste, beginning with helping to understand the 14 to 40% of bottlenecks caused by in-quality and out-of-quality staffing. And then we teach them the notions of non-value added steps. Let's eliminate them, declare war on them. Then we help them understand the notion of business value added steps, and let's resequence those. And finally, we teach them in their value added steps, can we reduce the cycle time? We focus on implementation, as we had said earlier, and so rather than analysis, value stream maps, 5S, all the analytic tools, we want directors to understand action-oriented interventions. And therein lies our 8 lean solution set. Helping them understand to identify where do I have failure modes or bottlenecks in my process, and what contingency plans might I develop as a director to speed the progression of patient care along its way. Where can we consolidate or eliminate steps? Number 3, how can we initiate dependent sub-processes like alerting bed management? We have a patient ready in 2 hours to be discharged to the floor. How do we initiate those dependent processes earlier? How do we parallel non-dependent processes instead of just in one at a time or in sequence? How do we decrease sub-process cycle time? Number 6, how do we decrease waste, errors, waits, delays, and changeover time? And numbers 7 and 8, how do we improve the relationship between staffing and our demand? And since we're a research firm, this is a download from our tracking system accelerator that shows, well, these are the kinds of changes that directors make to dramatically improve throughput. Excuse me, the number 1 on the list, standardization, 3,900 changes out of 27,000, or 14% of the total, in our database, representing $55 million of $264 million of change through standardization. How about in-quality staffing? Number 2 represents 10% of the changes and $36 million of CFO validated lean cost recovery. Substitution, representing 10% as well. Eliminating things that are not used, not only supplies, but also equipment and worked hours that are not used, and so on and so forth. By the end of the first 100-day workout, directors are not only able to understand this listing of 18 lean change concepts, they're able to coach others on how they can apply lean engineering to processes across the continuum of care. The second attack point for throughput is to truly understand the implications of being in quality staffing and out of quality staffing. And so now let's take a moment to answer the question, how do these research-based learnings and Caldwell-Butler lessons and experience apply to how we might redesign our accountable change model, particularly in the use of lean? That is the question, and we encourage and hope an ongoing dialogue with you about how we can use our research, our experience, and our team and approaches to help you dramatically improve throughput while recovering as the exhaust growth and cost reduction. Thank you for your time.